So as you guys know, for the most part, designer houses are mostly mainstream when it comes to their fragrance releases. They create stuff that the majority of the people, the masses, are going to like and enjoy and want to purchase. It just makes sense. If you're a big brand, you want to appeal to a lot of people so your brand stays big, it stays relevant, and keeps people talking about it. If you want exclusive, different, quirky smelling fragrances, you typically have to go to the niche side of things, which is going to be more expensive, and it's just quite a bit of a different experience. But there are some designer fragrances out there that, in my opinion, weren't really marketed for your average person, for your average consumer. There are some of these designers out there that are quite a bit different, and they created something that you would almost expect to see from a niche house and not from a popular designer brand. So today we're going to be going over 10 fragrances that, in my opinion, weren't created for the average consumer. Instead, they were kind of geared towards, us enthusiasts and people who just want something different smelling. So if you're someone who wants to stand out and not have to spend a whole lot of money, you're going to have to check this video out. Now, I do want to throw out there that there are going to be a couple niche fragrances in this list. The reason why is because these particular niche houses oftentimes do create mass-pleasing fragrances. However, there are a few of them that really aren't that mass-pleasing, but the majority of the list is going to be designer fragrances. So I hope you guys are ready to get into this video. Let's get started. First fragrance up, we have Valentino Uomo Acqua. So I like this fragrance quite a bit. It's a nice fresh iris, and it is typical. It is an iris fragrance, which you would expect, like Valentino Uomo and Uomo Intense, but this Acqua version is lightened up. It's a bit more soapy and citrusy, utilizing the note of tomato, which is something you don't see every day. But really though, this one does smell nice. It's very fresh, it's very invigorating, and it's one that I've had to warm up to. When I first got this one, I wasn't all crazy for it. I didn't really get the hype and the love behind it, and I kind of put it off. But here recently, I've been reaching for this bottle. I've been doing some more testing on it because I do want to do a review on it and stuff like that. So I will be getting a review out on some point now that I've been really starting to get into it. Now I'm really enjoying the fragrance. I'm really liking wearing it. In the beginning, I just thought it was okay, and that just kind of shows you, some of these fragrances are just going to be a little bit different. They're going to be tweaked in one way or another where they don't kind of smell quite like everything else out there. Up next, we have Moschino Toy Boy. Does this one look familiar to you? It should, because I just did a review on this one. If you want to hear my full thoughts, go check out that video. And also, how can you forget this bottle? If you've seen a picture of it online, it's probably stuck in your head forever. This is a men's rose scent, or really just a men's floral fragrance, I guess, overall. Something different here, and this is one where it was definitely not marketed and definitely not created with the average consumer in mind. Your average guy that goes into a department store and wants to pick the best smelling thing and get compliments isn't going to be reaching for something like this. They're going to pick this up and probably think it smells awful, to be honest with you, and I can see why. I don't think it smells awful. I quite like and appreciate this fragrance, but that's just it. You have to have an appreciation for something like this, and that's something that just kind of comes with being into fragrances, smelling a ton of different fragrances and kind of developing your own specific taste, and also really smelling a lot of fragrances and get tired of a lot of them smelling the same. This kind of comes in to solve that issue. A new release that is different than everything else out there. That's pretty cool. Much respect to the brand for creating something like this. For the most part, I'm not the biggest fan of men's floral scents, but there are a couple out there that I do really like. And this one, I do really like this one. What can I say? Not a bad scent. It's rose, but not in a old or super powdery way. It's pretty fresh, pretty clean, pretty soapy. Magnolia in here as well. You get some notes that kind of give a zesty, citrusy type of smell along with that fresh rose. So pretty nice composition. Definitely not created for your average guy out there. So up next here we have Tom Ford Tobacco Oud. Whether or not you want to consider the private blend niche or designer is going to be your prerogative. Like I've said in other videos, I still consider them to be designer because it's still Tom Ford. Still a designer, just like Yves Saint Laurent has their private collection, just like Dior has their private collection, or La Collection Privée, or whatever it's called, Maison Christian Dior, all that good stuff. That doesn't all of a sudden mean that Dior is now a niche brand, even though these Tom Ford fragrances and those Dior and YSL and Dolce & Gabbana line of fragrances are probably more niche in terms of quality and uniqueness, I still don't consider them niche. But still, this one is going to be in the list at a higher price tag. For the most part, Tom Ford, their private blend is actually pretty mass pleasing. I mean, if you look at a lot of them, they're known for getting compliments. You have Tobacco Vanille, you have Fougère d'Argent, you have Beau de Jour, you have Oud Wood, you have even Tuscan Leather. That's a pretty daring one, but that one is actually, from what I've heard, a pretty good compliment getter. Ombre Leather 16, that one's a little bit lighter. For the most part, their fragrances are pretty well received. There are a few in their line that are a bit more oddball, and this is kind of getting in that direction, in my opinion. I mean, this is a pretty tough fragrance to pull off, in my opinion. This stuff really has some depth. It has a lot of strength. It's very warm and like just heavy smelling. If you smelled Tobacco Oud, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about here. This stuff can be somewhat tricky to pull off. It can be a little bit tough, and in my opinion, definitely wasn't in the thought of being pushed out to a bunch of guys who aren't really into fragrances. They would smell this and probably think it kind of smells bad because of the oud in here. It's not like too crazy of an oud for me, but it is definitely prominent, and if you don't really know what you're smelling, probably not going to like it. So yeah, Tom Ford, Tobacco Oud, this one's a bit tricky, and again, they do have some oddball ones, but I would say for the most part, their focus is for the masses. I mean, you look at their new signature line that's introducing some of their discontinued private blends like Beau de Jour and like Ombre Leather 16, putting them into the more accessible line of fragrances for people out there who aren't going into the private blend and getting that deep. So, you also have Grey Vetiver and all those others from the line. I would say for the most part, this one's going to be a bit tricky. And while we're at it, we'll get another niche brand out of the way. And this one is from Creed. Now, I'm sure you can agree with me, Creed creates a lot of mass-pleasing scents. Some people will kind of say Creed is like, your entry-level niche house, and I would agree. In terms of price at retail, that's a bit of a different story compared to something like, for example, Mancera at retail, $180 versus Creed at like $450. Quite a discrepancy there. But in terms of discount prices, which you can get basically all these Creeds for, they're pretty entry level in terms of pricing, and also in terms of a lot of their scents. I mean, you have stuff like Millésime Imperial, you have even Aventus, pretty mass pleasing. A lot of people love it. You have stuff like Silver Mountain Water, a whole bunch of stuff, even Viking. That one's pretty hard to dislike unless you just don't like stuff that's a bit more classic, right? But the list goes on. For the most part, their scents are pretty wearable, pretty easy to enjoy. But this one here, this one is a bit polarizing, and this one is Royal Mayfair. So the deal with this one is originally this one was called Windsor. It was not in a retail bottle. I believe you could only get it from flacons and also just in their atomizers, I believe. I don't think it was in a retail bottle. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was, I believe it was an exclusive as well. I don't know for sure. I wasn't in the fragrance game when Windsor was out, but they vaulted that one, and that just means discontinued in Creed's fancy wording. Now, a few years later, or I don't know how long later, but eventually they released Royal Mayfair, which is, from what I've heard, pretty similar, basically the same as Windsor. Of course, there's some differences. Again, I haven't smelled Windsor, so I don't know, but it's basically kind of the reproduction of Windsor in a retail bottle, easier to get overall. So that's kind of where this one came from. This one has rose and pine, so it's definitely more of a classic masculine type of fragrance. And it's definitely not going to be for everyone here. And I do believe this one was actually discontinued again. Just wasn't selling, which, I can see why. And they cut this one off again, at least from what I understand. This one is still on discounts. You can pick up tester bottles like this, a 4-ounce tester bottle on FragranceNet. I just looked, it was like $120, which is dirt cheap for Creed fragrances. I mean, this one has always been a cheaper Creed just because my guess is that it's just not selling. Discounters are getting it for cheaper because of that, and it's still the case. $120 for 4-ounce tester, I believe like $130-ish for a 4-ounce full presentation with a cap. If you want it, hop in and get it, because this is probably not going to be around for much longer, especially in a 4-ounce bottle size, because this bottle size is actually discontinued as well. And if you actually look on FragranceNet, there are a few other creeds that are quite cheap as well. I believe in the 4-ounce bottle size, some not, but they do have some good deals. Some in the 2.5 ounce, which is also a discontinued size. So head on over there. Fragrance X probably has the same thing as well. So go check out those sites. Pick up some, quote unquote cheap Creed fragrances before they're all gone. Up next here we have Gucci Guilty Cologne. So if you guys watched my video a while back, I don't remember what it was. It was like 10 fragrances that basically I don't like that much. And this was one of those fragrances. Basically told you that, I'm not the biggest fan of this one. You're probably not going to see it on the channel anymore. And you really haven't seen this one on the channel. But I had to put it in this video because, well, it's this video. I mean, if you look at this fragrance note breakdown and really more importantly, you smell it, you're going to know that this was not created with, your average consumer in mind. I mean, this stuff is odd. It's a bit powdery. It's relatively floral. It's not really something that smells masculine. I don't want to say it smells feminine either, but I would say it's pretty unisex, kind of in the middle, not really necessarily in one direction or another. It's kind of different. It's odd, and it's just something that, while I can appreciate they did something different, it's not me, it's not my style, it's nothing that I would ever wear, so, I'm just not a fan of it, but I do respect them for creating this, and some people do like it, which is great, but, again, if you want something different here, check this one out, and you'll realize quickly that this just wasn't created for everyone. Up next, we have Terre d'Hermès Eau Intense Vetiver, that nice, dark colored fragrance, relatively darker than the EDT, that's for sure. I mean, it looks pretty cool. If you thought the EDT was kind of iffy, this one's pretty iffy too. And this one actually gets rid of the popular orange note that Terre d'Hermès EDT and Parfum and Eau Très Fraîche are known for, that orange and vetiver woodiness mixture. Takes the orange out of this one and replaces it with, I believe it's bergamot or some other kind of generic citrus, typical citrus, I guess. But this one, obviously, main focus is vetiver. So you gotta like vetiver, and really in general, you gotta like dry woods to be able to like this scent, because it is a dry, woody fragrance all the way through. Definitely nothing for guys that are younger and used to smelling Hollister and Abercrombie & Fitch and body sprays. You guys aren't going to like that, and it's definitely something a bit more daring and not everyone's cup of tea. Next here we have Bottega Veneta Pour Homme Eau de Toilette. This one's got pine, fur, leather. I love this stuff though. It smells great, and it's kind of your take on a more mature classic scent, but with more of like a rugged outdoorsiness smell, probably coming from that pine and that fur. Amazing stuff though, and if you like scents that are in this genre, almost like an aromatic fougere type of thing, kind of barbershoppy, I guess, check this fragrance out, because it really kind of fits in there and adds its own twist on that type of scent DNA. But just again, as another fair warning, not created for your average guy. I would say for the most part, the demographic on this one is going to be guys in their late 30s and up, maybe even early 40s and up, just more mature guys, just because, aromatic fougere, barbershoppy, that sort of thing. Typically, guys that are older, more mature, gonna like it more. I guess I'm weird because I love fragrances like this at 20 years old. I don't know, but I would say for the most part, not gonna be for guys in high school and college, unless you're weird like me. Bottega Veneta Pour Homme, this is not going to be for everyone, but those of you who love it, well, you're going to love it. Kind of sticking with that same genre, we have Dior Eau Sauvage Parfum. I almost said Eau Sauvage Cologne, but Eau Sauvage Parfum, the 2017 version. I was going to say the 2017 in production version, but I don't know. Is this one still in production? I can't remember if I'm getting it mixed up with another fragrance that has been discontinued. I think it still is. Correct me if I'm wrong, or let me know down below in the comments if this is still in production. I think it is. Maybe I'm getting mixed up with another fragrance, but there was something. Maybe it was the extreme version. Maybe it got discontinued. I don't know. But second to last fragrance we have is Issey Miyake Nuit d'Essai Noir Argent. You heard about this one over the winter time from me. This is one of my discoveries that I instantly loved. And like I've said before, Issey Miyake can be a hit or miss house. They have a lot of releases out there, like a ton of them, a ton of different flankers in this line. It's hard to keep up with, and I'll be the first to admit a lot of them aren't that great. Really high quality, and it's really unique. Not something that I would expect from them. And following that same note, this one not going to be for everyone either. It's a little bit different here. You got some sweeter balsamic note. And finally, last fragrance up, we have the final niche fragrance. I talked about having a few in the house, or a couple fragrance houses in the list, I guess is what I meant to say, a couple niche fragrance houses. You get what I'm saying. This one from MFK is Baccarat Rouge 540. So why Baccarat Rouge 540? Why MFK? I would say for the most part, MFK has pretty, mass-pleasing fragrances. Masculine Pluriel, Aqua Vitae, Aqua Universalis. What else? You got Petite Matin. A lot of their fragrances from this line are pretty well received, pretty hard to dislike. Of course, you have their Oud Silk Mood, Oud Satin Mood, all of those, which are going to be a bit trickier, but they do have quite a bit that are relatively mass pleasing and really easy to pull off. But Baccarat Rouge 540, not so much. This one very polarizing. It's basically love it or hate it. I don't see too awfully many people in the middle. It's either, it smells like dentist office, latex gloves, or and they hate it, or people loving it. I'm in the group where I love it. I do see the latex glove dentist office type of thing, but I still like it, and I see it, or I smell it as more than that. I don't know. There's something magical about this stuff to me, and it took me a little while to get it, but I smelled it for the first time, and I'm like, that's different. But at the same time, I couldn't stop smelling it. I kept going back to my sample, and I'm like, even though this is kind of weird, I'm kind of starting to like it. And then lo and behold, ended up grabbing a couple bottles for myself, and I really do enjoy it. I've kind of fallen off with it. I don't reach for it as much as I used to. So guys, that was going to do it for me. That was 10 fragrances that weren't created for the average consumer. These are fragrances that are just a bit different. They're a bit out there, some more so than others, but I would say collectively, these are not going to be fragrances that your average guy looking for a compliment-getting cologne is going to purchase when they smell these in a department store, or at least the ones that they can smell in a department store. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your list down below, which fragrances in your collection that are a bit more for the collectors. That's going to do it for me. All these will be linked down below if you want to pick any up at discounted prices. Make sure you stay safe, stay healthy. I'll see you tomorrow night with another one. Take care.